Hip-hop. Anonymous.
Saturdays.
All right. Welcome to NFTLA parties. Having a great time with the Nifty Squad, having a great time with the Frogland crew, and we have the honor and the privilege of talking to Bassy Bob right now. Bassy Bob, how are you?
I'm good. It's Bassy.
Oh, Bassy. Excuse me. Bassy, I'm an idiot.
No, you're not an idiot. It's all about the bass, baby.
All about that bass. Yeah, you know, I was doing some research into you, and I saw that you have worked with quite an extraordinary list of people. I saw the Fugees on there, Notorious B.I.G., Tony Braxton, Babyface, CeeLo Green, Mary J. Blige, Bob Dylan. You have lived some extraordinary life.
Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Absolutely. Can you tell me a little bit about what your process is like in the studio?
I mean, from a mixing perspective, I'm kind of a moron. I'm like a bass player and a trumpet player that accidentally became a recording engineer in college because I just knew how shit was supposed to sound, but I have no technique at all. I'm a savant idiot at the console, but I do understand how to interpret how musicians feel about a particular part of a record into something like compression or saturation or high EQ or reverb or dub delays or whatever.
So in the way that you say that you kind of fell into it, are you pretty much completely self-taught?
No. I went to the University of Miami. I was one of the first MUIs in the music engineering department.
Very cool.
1981.
Excellent. Awesome. And then, so how did you get in touch with all of these big artists? So was that the kind of thing where you kind of started producing your own stuff, making a name for yourself, and then they caught on, or?
Not at all. I was an assistant for about 6 months, and I hated it because I was also disorganized. I would always lose tapes and fuck up and get fired and go to another studio and be more humiliated by being an assistant. And so in the meantime, on the weekends, I worked at this keyboard player studio in South Brooklyn, Fred Czar, who was Madonna's musical director.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, well, if I work with Madonna's musical director, I'll work with Madonna. And I never worked with Madonna. He had this girlfriend who was terrible, and I worked with her for like months. Betty was her name. And at one point I said to my roommate, I can't hang in there anymore. This shit is horrible. I can't put up with it.
Just because you felt like you could outdo them.
He's like, dude, this is Madonna's keyboard player. You gotta hang in there, man. So I was like, okay, I'll do a couple more weeks. So still working at Fred's place. He calls me one Saturday. He's like, I have this 14-year-old girl with a development deal in Atlantic named Debbie Gibson. Can you mix a demo for me? So I did. I spent an hour on it. You know, I just mixed it up, put it onto a DAT tape for him, and I went home. 3 months later, I'm at a pizzeria with my roommate, the same guy that convinced me to stick with him, and I heard it on the jukebox. I was like, and I looked and I saw there was like a 45 of it. I was like, what the fuck did that come from? And I could tell it was my mix, you know? So I called Fred. He said, oh, yeah, well, little do we Vega did this 12-inch and blew up in Miami, and then they had to have a radio record, so they went in the vault and they found your dad, and they mastered it. And with no technique, like no skills, I was like a terrible assistant. Like nobody would hire me, and I had a hit record in like 1986.
That is amazing.
So here, just let me switch microphones with you. This is a little bit more powerful. So my question to you would be, you know, we're looking at this from an NFT perspective now, minting music and you know, ownership over music. So when you heard that track playing, was that a moment where you were like, shit, I should be getting paid for that? Or was that kind of just like an exciting thing and you knew that there was no way you were getting paid for it because you didn't sign any sort of a contract? How did that work?
I think early on, like the experiences I had were like I had success or I had a hit or I heard my music on the radio and I wasn't making money. It didn't really like register with me because I never give a fuck about money. My whole life, I've never really cared. I've always cherished the experiences that you have, right? And when you get to watch like Aretha or Shaka Khan like hit a note in the studio and like the hair raises up to the back of your neck, you're like, this is the greatest thing in the fucking world, you know? And I would do this for free. And, the thing about my new company is if we accidentally become a $100 million company and squash Spotify, I'm going to spend all of that money on artists because that's what artists do. And so if an artist makes, say 93% of the stake on a transaction, you're going to have millions of millionaire artists. And when artists have money, they spend it in really, really interesting ways because they're creative people. Yeah. They're not bureaucrats. They're not assholes.
And they're creative, so they build upon what they're already building.
Yeah, usually they build on what's meaningful in their own life experience. Like they've had a family member that had like a particular problem, or some kind of social change that they want to make happen. And the whole kind of DAO structure it's kind of like the logical extension of what used to be a Facebook user group, Violin Players Anonymous, like 17 million violin players all in the same tribe.
Right.
But that's what a DAO is, but it had no governance to it, and actually you didn't have any power because Facebook had all the power, right? So now you have all these Web3 tools that allow you to actually just self-create a governance body, which is what we're doing. The Nifty is really is kind of like the guiding principle of the company. Nifty Tunes is just a product. It's just like a social experience. It's just like an improvisational Cirque du Soleil crackhead moment, where people are just jamming with each other. And you don't even realize when you're looking at the video and you're looking at the audio whether it's actually going to work or sync together. It's like making a movie. Well, and then there's also all this live stuff going on. Like Molly Denoir is in the back. And she's doing like a pantomime performance in front of a green screen with like the backgrounds being flipped like she's an NFT character. It's an open palette, this stuff. You can build anything on top of it.
And that's really kind of how we fell into this, because since you can build anything, we started early on with the Frogland group, and ASAP Froggy over here, he was talking about bringing music into the NFT space for a long time, and how can we mint stems so that the community can buy those stems and then create their own projects off of that. And, he was involved in Warp Sounds and a couple of other NFT projects, and he said, Frogland seems like the community and the space that we could really build this out. And they've been so receptive, and it's been awesome. And that's just so unique about Web3 and the NFT community in general, is how, willing and open everyone is to kind of move forward, pioneer into a new space, and see what happens. And it's all love, and it's a beautiful thing. Just to backtrack a little bit. So when you were saying that, you were in the recording studio, kind of flippantly worked on this track, then all of a sudden 3 months later you hear it playing in the pizza shop. So is that something where that kind of gave you the clout to be able to move into working with other bigger artists then?
Oh yeah.
Or how did the progression work?
It was like within a week I started getting calls from like EMI and RCA Records. Like,
unbelievable.
They knew about that, like Only in My Dreams was a big radio hit. They went and looked at the credit. They saw me. They paid me 50 times what I made on the first record I did with Debbie. I got $50 for it.
Wow.
Only in My Dreams. It sold like 7 million copies.
No royalties, no nothing, right?
So the next one I got $2,500 because when I went to the A&R guy's office, he said, dude, you have to stop fucking charging people so little money. It just like makes us look bad. You need to pump that shit up if you want to be successful. I was like, that's fraudulent. He's like, no, it's not. It's about clout, man. You got to charge a lot of money. Don't worry. They'll say okay. And I was like, okay, $2,500. They didn't even blink because actually the song's worth like $100 million probably in its lifetime. And not that much.
And I mean, you really did say it beautifully, kind of to paraphrase what you were saying, do what you love and the money will follow. And you weren't even interested in the money, but you saw, this opportunity to just be in the room with these people, do the thing you love, and the success came. And I think that's kind of a theme in life for a lot of people. It's you see the most successful people are just doing their thing. And they're not necessarily
like
worried about
following their
money.
own guide.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I feel like this is this is like my 7th or 8th startup I've done maybe the last 13 years. And I've done interesting companies, but I don't think that they were very pivotal. It's really weird, man. It's like trying to invent a light bulb. You just keep flicking shit and like trying to see whether something works. And this was a total accident because my music manager introduced me to a dev in New York one day when I was working there. And I had this idea about creating this new kind of novel sort of product.
Right.
It was missing. It was like this hole in the middle of the marketplace. It was like art over here, music over there, different companies for each format. And nobody that was like, mixing them together the way advertising movies does. I mean, the thing is, movie scenes without music are not very interesting.
Yeah. No, and that's something that actually one of the developers of the Frogland project that we've been working closely with, he was so excited that we were interested in bringing music into the project because he said, this is such a major element that this thing is missing because music really guides a lot of visuals that you see. So,
well, I think it also changes perception.
Yeah.
I think it's much easier to flip away from a picture, and that's not devaluing the picture. I just think when music is playing with the picture, people, they want to wait to see whether they like the groove.
Yeah.
If they like the groove, they'll listen to it for 8 hours.
And if they like the groove, they'll love the picture.
And if they like the groove, then the picture will be precious to them.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that there's a compounded value proposition from these kinds of art things getting mashed up together the same way you remix music.
Yeah.
With a new beat. It's just and then there's all these kinds of ways in which you can dress things up. You can take a picture and I'm not saying it's not a nice picture or it's not a nice NFT, but when you put like an animated background behind it, it becomes something else.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's the really wild thing too is that mediums were before the NFT space. I feel like mediums were very what they were. You're watching a movie or you're listening to an album or but you're doing that thing. And the NFT space is a combination of all of these different art forms coming together. It's an amazing time.
I mean, I think the biggest discovery and observation I found in just kind of my research of kind of looking at the way art was being presented with NFTs was that these were pictures that were worth $5 on Fiverr like 3 months ago, and now they're worth $400,000.
Yep.
Like, where's the shift? And the shift must be that this is an anomaly in terms of how much money somebody possesses because people happen to bet on the horse that was crypto, and they all have millions of dollars. Right. They don't have a lot of stuff to buy with it. Yeah. And so suddenly they decided, you know what? We're just going to drive these fucking things up. We're going to take these pictures that we think are the coolest ones, and we're going to get them up to $250,000.
I mean,
and I was like, well, of course you could do that with music. I mean, music is the most precious thing in the world to people. A great beat or a great song. So we were like, well, why don't we just do the valuation curve 50-50, So if it goes up to 20 ETH and it's like $60,000, it's $30,000 to the musician. If the musician made $30,000 on the transaction, that's 1 billion times the revenue of Spotify. It's not 100, it's not 50. It's 1 billion. It's the same as income inequality. The scale is on such a hockey stick that you can't even see it, how concentrated wealth is. And the whole kind of DAO idea of business of bringing kind of democratic governance to a conversation that's part of a group of people who are friends, right? Our company is a group of friends. We're 10 people that decided to go on this freak show, and everybody's got a different superpower. We got visual artists, coders, incredible, web style people, musicians, animate, and the thing is that it is kind of like a build it and they will come kind of thing. It feels like going to a dead show more than it feels like starting a company. It's would you like to do blah, blah, blah? Oh, yeah, I love to do that. Okay, you're in. You're part of the DAO.
When was the last dead show you went to?
What's that?
When was the last dead show you've been to?
Well, I was going to dead shows when I was working with Mickey Hart with Mike Menard, who's going to be spinning in there soon.
Awesome.
That's how Mike met. I mean, we were both tortured by Mickey, and he almost killed both of us. But we made it out alive.
If I'm not mistaken, Mike was doing sound design for Dead & Company for a couple of years. Yeah,
he was, but he also did all of Mickey's beats on Rambo. It's all Menard shit. I mean, Mickey didn't write any of it. It's 99% Michael, but he was being paid as a contractor.
Wow.
It's like a classic Web 2 hustle.
Right. So when you describe Nifty, you describe the idea and that lack of that thing in the space that was clear to you that it needed. Was it a no-brainer when you got with that developer and then it was just
you hit
the ground running?
I think when we first started working on it, we just thought of it as a phone app, just like a way to create your own little designs with music and animation. But then we kind of realized that it goes way beyond that, in the sense that it's I'm trying to sort of conceptualize it. I think it was when we got accepted to South by Southwest. I was like, we have to have a live show. How are we going to have a live show? So I started talking to Twans, who was like my analog synthesis friend in New Orleans, and also Sozy, this rapper that I was working with, and Wino Willie, this DJ who you have to hear. Unbelievable fucking DJ. And I was like, would you guys be interested in contributing some loops? And would you guys be interested in contributing some art? We're going to South by Southwest. And then we put on this improvisational show, and we played the NFTs live in front of an audience, and then played on top of it, which is this was Scott Page's idea. He's like, man, I just want to jam, and I want to make, a mint of that after we've jammed on top of the loop. And I was like, it's impossible, dude. We can't do that. There's no way. And
nothing is impossible.
So we started searching around, and then Kush found Rarible. He found this like lazy minting like stack that we could bring in, and we wouldn't have to build it, and we could just use it, and they would just take whatever they take, their service fee for using their minting, and mint on their platform. We have an instant marketplace. So we decided to do these improvisational things. Like every night it was going to be a different thing. It was going to be a different vibe.
Yeah.
But it was always like people improvising over like DJ music. But the DJ music were actually NFTs that were playing on the block.
Amazing.
So we were like, we could do this with 5,000 bands all over the world. Like all the biggest bands in the world could just be like airdropping their fans like 2 minutes after the song is done. Like, you've listened to Adele do this unbelievable performance, and it's like, you got your memory that you can take home with you, and you'll never forget that night. That's what NFTs are. They're memories. They're, in a sense, they're like types of photographs.
Time capsules.
Time capsules, yeah. Like little short time capsules. Yeah. But they're also art, It's a completely, new way of thinking about art. That's in a sense.
And it's like with Sapo Studios, we were kind of thinking that, and it's interesting that there was like this similar projected thought, right? And that's why I think Matt had kind of wanted to link us all together, because we were
you were all talking the same conversations in a sense,
yeah,
like having the same thoughts at the same time.
like saying like we're doing a podcast, we're doing live jamming, which we've been doing on Sapo Studios, and at some point I'm kind of like, you know what, guys, how cool would it be if people were like bidding on the stems as they're being created? And then we kind of like brought that idea to Frogland, and they're like, you guys need to meet the guys at Nifty Tunes.
Yeah, I mean, it changes the whole valuation curve of art, It makes it a very precious thing, things that happen in the moment, live stuff, which is what people just keep clamoring for generation after generation. They always find their way back to some live shit, and for me, that was when I was in my early 30s. I was going to these clubs in New York, and I was jamming on trumpet. These DJs like Jazzy Nice, these like Bobito, these like acid jazz DJs. And they would play these rare groove shit, and like Jay Rodriguez and me and Josh Roseman, we would go in and we would jam for like hours on stage with the DJ. And then it became this band, the Brooklyn Funk Essentials, which was kind of like a DJ acid jazz 12-piece funk band. When I was thinking about Nifty Tunes, I was like, we should do a live show at South by that's like a Brooklyn Funk Essentials show. We never know what the DJ's going to play. It's totally improvisational. People are doing like dub delays on the fly, and it's like a kind of a King Tubby improvisational moment. Anyway, that's what we're going to be doing tonight.
And there's such a different energy that comes to a live.
Right? Because there's no preconception, right? There's no conceit about it, because it's like, if you fuck up or you play the wrong thing, you just keep going on. You're improvising.
And listen, dissonance is a beautiful part of music. So sometimes those fuck ups, they actually sound pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's so true, man.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you so much for sitting down with us.
Cheers,
this has been
man.
a true pleasure.
I really appreciate you thinking of me. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
And you guys come back and hang out when I'm playing trumpet in a little bit.
I would love to hear
Can't wait.
Pleasure, dude.
Thank you.